Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'd like to take a look at the many Gen 1 fossils of GLC. So what is GLC for those of you who don't know? It's a single prize only no rulebox format, and fortunately there are plenty of fossils which don't have a rulebox, which is great. It is singleton except for basic energy, and you're only allowed one type per deck. So sadly, even though 3 different fossil types will be featured in this video, fighting, water, and colorless, you sadly cannot run all of them in the same GLC deck, unless they do something crazy in the future, where they switch up the types and things, which would be very cool to see, and I hope they do that eventually, just for us GLC players. But yeah, only one type per deck, so yeah, bit of coverage for today's video though. But yeah, the first stuff I kind of want to just briefly touch upon is the fossil items. I'm sure many of you are aware of this, but just to let you know, these will evolve into their respective forms, but do be careful because, for example, there is an Aerodactyl, for example, that does specify that it has to evolve from a certain fossil. So, there's a lot of confusion. They keep changing around this mechanic to try and make it more playable. It never works, by the way, in standard. It just more or less exclusively depends on how good that fossil is individually, really, and not really to do with the item. But yeah, these items are pretty strong. I would recommend them if you can get a hold of them. But they are from the special set 151, so it kind of makes it a bit awkward to pick up for GLC. But again, if you're just building one GLC deck, then one item slash trainer, it's not bad really to pick up. But then we have some other fossil support. So this is kind of a bit weaker in some ways. But these ones just say, look at the bottom 7 cards of your deck, and you may reveal for example, Aerodactyl you find there, and put it onto your bench, then shuffle the other cards back into your deck. So it is quite nice because it's effectively just finding a Pokemon immediately to just slap onto your bench. The downside, of course, is that you might not hit anything. So it's okay, that's pretty terrible. Now, you can use Fossil Excavation Kit to put to in any combination of the Helix cards basically just back in your hand. So Dome, Old Amber, and Helix. But, in GLC, when you can only play one of each card, and you're only going to be playing, one item because you can only play one type in your deck, then Fossil Excavation Kit is actually significantly weaker in Singleton. So yeah, bit of a shame in that department, but if you want to run these, then you can. Also got some more fossil support here because yes, they kept changing how this thing works. But this is from the Sun and Moon era. It also features in the Sword and Shield, as far as I'm aware, in some capacity. But yeah, Unidentified Fossil is kind of cool. Basically just a 60 HP colorless Pokemon. Can't retreat, but at any point you may discard it. Also, Fossil Excavation Map is pretty cool. Search your deck for an unidentified fossil, then shuffle your deck, put it into your hand, or you get to put one from your discard pile into your hand. So you can actually reset the evolution line because often in the Pokemon TCG, right, you can, of course, recover Pokemon quite easily with things like Super Rod, but you can't get back the items, and that's kind of annoying unless you use things like Silene, which gets awkward. So, having Fossil Excavation Map in the deck is quite helpful if you decide to use an identified fossil. But yes, finally we can look at the very first fossil Pokemon, and that is going to be Aerodactyl. So this one does specify that you can only put it onto your bench through the effect of Old Amber Aerodactyl, so, do be careful with that sense. But it does have the ability Ancient Scream, which says your Pokemon's attacks do 10 more damage to your active Pokemon. To the opponent's active Pokemon, sorry. Yeah, that would suck, actually, if your Pokemon did more damage themselves. But yeah, Ancient Scream, kind of a nice ability. I think this one's a bit more on the underrated / niche side. Plus 10 damage. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you ever find fighting Pokemon that maybe do chip damage naturally and want the bench space filled up, then I can kind of see this Aerodactyl being kind of useful. It's a bit of a weird one, I get it, and especially with Old Amber just being an odd item card, but I do kind of like this card for some reason. Wing Attack, of course, is terrible, but Ancient Scream, I do think there's some potential here. So gets a thumbs up from me, to be honest. It's kind of creative, and I'm also biased. Aerodactyl might be my favorite fossil, so Okay, XY Fates Collide though. So Aerodactyl has to be used from Old Amber Aerodactyl, but this is where it gets a bit complicated because Kabuto and Omanite will specify the same thing. However, if you use a different Kabuto or Omanite, say one that's more recent, you could just evolve into these ones through other methods, through Unidentified Fossil, for example. So yeah, it is very confusing and how it all works, but there's just plenty of ways to approach it, pretty much, except with this Aerodactyl. So Unfortunately, I would say actually this Aerodactyl happens to be the best one, really. Like Jet Draft doing 120, and you get to discard a special energy. It is for two colors, and we will look at an Aerodactyl in a second, which is just phenomenal in every respect. So this one is unfortunately a bit outclassed at this stage. But for two colors energy, I mean, spoiler alert, the next one attacks for three colors. So if you just want to exclusively build around two energy, then, I'm sure Jet Draft is okay. But yeah, sadly gets a bit outclassed, which is a shame because I think it has some great artwork. Kabutops is just whatever, like 50 damage, heal from his Pokemon, the same amount of damage did your opponent's active Pokemon. Yeah, not very good. Maybe okay in casual GLC. Aside from that, not very good. Got this Omastar with the ability Restoring Beam, which is quite nice if you play any other like restored Pokemon. So I think Aurorus is another water type that can be restored. But aside from that, nothing else really. So like it is kind of niche, but it's not the most useless thing in the world. Also, I've never really noticed there's another Omastar in the picture there. Okay, that's interesting. But yeah, very cool artwork, I would say. Like the artwork's great for these, but yeah, just not really the best, sadly. Then we have Sun and Moon Team Up, and this is where things start to get really interesting. So this Aerodactyl is indeed competitive. It is part of like the coolest box, I guess, with Porygon Z. So Fossil Fang's doing 180 damage for 3 colors energy because there is no GX or EX in the format, so there's no restrictions. It doesn't have free retreat, unlike the other Aerodactyls, which is a bit of a shame. And I guess the first Aerodactyl we looked at didn't have free retreat, but you know what I mean. Fossil Fang's very, very good attack, very, very efficient. Can't really say much more about this card. You can use Unidentified Fossil. You can use the Fossil Map card. So, yeah, just a very, very, very strong card, to be honest. Kabutops, with the ability Fossilize Memories, says as long as this Pokemon is in your active is in your active Pokemon is your active Pokemon. Sorry, your opponent can't play any supporter cards from their hand, which is yeah, really annoying actually. Like really annoying in GLC. It's bad enough that you can only have one of each supporter, so not being able to play any full stop, very annoying. Rock Slide does 80 damage for a fighting double colorless and 20 damage to two of your opponent's bench Pokemon, which in all honesty isn't the worst attack if you're combining it with supporter lock. So hey, I think this Kabutops gets a bit of props from me. It's kind of cool. Also got this Omastar with the ability Fossil Bind, which says as long as you have fewer Pokemon in play than your opponent, they can't play any item cards from their hand. Very, very annoying. Of course, your opponent can try and like play around this, and you might overbench just trying to get Omastar out into play in the first place. But Fossil Bind can be quite devastating. I think there did used to be a GLC deck where you could get Kabutops and Omastar out together, because there was a stadium that was legal research lab that allowed you to find two Pokemon that evolved from unidentified fossil and put them onto your bench. But yeah, they banned that stadium, sadly. So yeah, no more research lab in GLC. I should have dedicated a slide to talking about that. But yeah, no research lab, sadly. So Kabutops and Omastar is, of course, the dream. You support her and item lock them and then just attack with the Kabutops. But yeah, that'd be very difficult, I think, to pull it off really now. Then we have the fossils from Scarlet Violet to 151. So again, kind of awkward to get a hold of because 151 was, of course, a special set. But this Aerodactyl, pretty strong to be honest. 130 HP, has the attack Devolution Ray, 100 damage, and if your opponent's active Pokemon is an evolved Pokemon, de-evolve it. So, quite nice. It's kind of like TM Devolution, but you're actively doing the damage as well. So, you poke something like a very tanky stage 2 Pokemon for 100 damage, then they have to de-evolve, and if it's a 8 HP basic or whatever, you basically just want to kill them. So it's a one KO move in GLC effectively against evolved Pokemon. So yeah, very cool. Also got this Omastar, which is super annoying. It's kind of like Snorlax at home in a way, with the ability Primordial Tentacles preventing them from retreating, which is very annoying if you're trying to build a water control deck. Please don't do that. It would be very annoying to play against. Then we have Aqua Split, which does 90 damage and 30 to two of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So it's kind of like a scaled up version of Kabutops in a way. But yeah, it's a very annoying card to deal with. Spread damage and retreat lock. Yeah, very annoying. Also got this Kabutops, which sadly once again might be the worst of the three. Yeah, someone on the design team doesn't like Kabutops. It has the ability Ancient Way, apply weakness for your opponent's active Pokemon as times 4 instead. This is honestly just a bit of a troll card, really, because obviously you can only play one type in GLC, so you're effectively just times 4 weakness against fighting weak Pokemon like dark types in some colors, which is, it's quite funny. You probably one shot them every time now, but I mean, you're probably one shotting them anyway with most attackers that you'll be using. So, yeah, it's I'll leave that up to you whether or not you want to play this, but yeah, it's not really a strong recommendation. It's kind of funny, but a lot of deck space for what it is, really. But yeah, thank you for watching. I do a new set review for GLC with each new release, so subscribe if you're interested in being updated, although the next review will be Prismatic Evolutions, and there's like nothing in that set. This is now a series to stay, so let me know which Pokemon you'd like to see. There is a list for going through them, and a playlist has been made. And if you want to dive into the competitive side, Omnipoke and the format creator, Tricky Jim, have both done fantastic videos and guides for each types. But yeah, it's been our power. Let me know what you think down below. And yeah, thank you for watching.